Good evening and welcome to On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight, where we talk to successful women and men of Fiji wherever they may be. This evening I have with me one of Fiji's most recognizable faces and voices, Bernadette Rounds-Ganilau, a living legend, pioneer of the media industry, a former parliamentarian and fashion icon. Bernadette has been a driving force behind the economic empowerment of women. Bernadette, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to have you here on point with us tonight.
Ellen, thank you so much. You make me sound like an old relic that I should be in the museum or something.
Well,
like
I tell you what, if you were in a museum, I'd be paying money to come and see you. You'd be one of the most unique pieces there.
Please come and join me.
Actually, I should be there with you because, you know, both of us are part of the old school, aren't we?
You're much
you know, our families go back a very long way.
Definitely.
We're related,
Yes.
we're friends.
Yes.
And there's a saying that people say, when I grow up, I want to be like you.
Oh, yes.
But I am grown up now,
Yes.
and I can't be like you because you're one of a kind. You're so unique. I ask people in the community, just various people, you know, if someone asks you an opinion to give on what Bernadette Rounds means to you, I could write a book of just words and descriptions of what people said about you. And so it is a real honor to have you here because you've done so much for the society in Fiji. And you started, when you came back from Australia, where you went to school and you lived most of your life, you came back to Fiji in the 1970s, early 1970s. You were one of our very first major radio personalities. Tell us what it was like in the 1970s.
That was the best time for radio because radio was the only medium and there was no such thing as a media society. You only had the newspapers and radio. So everybody listened to FBC, Radio Fiji at the time. It was wonderful because we'd just become independent. So we still had a lot of the BBC and ABC personnel
Yes.
on hand. So we were taught everything. You were taught to speak, you were taught to interview, to do your own research, to go out in the field, to edit your own program. We used to hand edit. I could cut the word S out of the word girls and then splice it back in again. You know, everything is done electronically now. So those were really good times. And you had nothing else to follow except the BBC or Radio New Zealand, etc. So your standard had to be really quite on par with that.
And very high.
It had to be of a good standard.
Yes.
So they were very exciting times. The women's movement was beginning, so we had all these wonderful movers and shakers coming out talking about women's rights, etc.
Who were some of them in those days?
Oh my goodness, Suliana Siwatimbao,
Oh,
Taufa
yes.
Vakatale.
Yes.
And who can ever forget Miss Rokotui Vuna, of course.
Absolutely.
And then Arlene Griffin, and these were
Yes.
Claire Slatter, and then the young ones like Patricia Jalal, etc. They were all coming up, and they changed the face of women's outlook and women's self-respect. They lifted the standard. So it was a very exciting time.
And how do you think, you know, what do you think the role of a radio personality was in those days, and how do you think that's changed, or has it changed?
Yeah, I think it should still be the same, but I think now it's the personality. Now it's the person, how they look, and there's, you know, I suppose how cool they are and what they say. But what it really boils down to, present facts. That's all. Just tell the truth.
Yes.
And don't give fake news like our dear carrot-topped friend in the north is quite well known for. So I think just tell the truth.
Yes.
Be truthful in everything that you say when you're reporting on the ground. You don't go and listen to some talanoa from somebody said, man, they said that this happened, and you bring that on as news.
Yes.
I think that is the big difference today.
Yes.
I think we have a lot
because,
of slang.
you know,
and stuff.
wherever you go, Bernadette, people look up to you as a mentor, as a really
I'm
good
6'2",
example.
so no wonder they look up to me.
But you know, that as well as the fact that you're so well presented, you're so well manicured, and it's the work that you do. Because one of the things that I said, you know, when I started to come back to Fiji to do the work that I do with fashion, was the radio personalities. It's the content of what they're presenting. It's the English grammar, and it's the way they speak. Now, as a radio personality, people who are listening to you, they will take on what you say, or how you speak, what you do. Do you think that really has an effect on people? Do you think that it is negative?
Of course it does. I mean, if we said a word that wasn't quite right, Hugh Leonard, who was our general manager at the time, would ring us in the studio, and we had to go up there and explain why we were speaking like this. We really had to speak. But, you know, times have changed.
Yes.
Kids are all, you know, very fashionable, the dopamine overflow, and so they have to be trendy. And sometimes when I listen to the radio, I'm just wondering whether I'm listening to English. And when my little American grandnieces and grandnephews talk, it sounds like something from a music program. And I'll just say, Goofy, what are you talking about? I have no idea.
Yes, the language has
different
changed.
Generation.
Yes.
And
it's not only the spoken voice, but the written.
Everything.
The written has changed as well, and that's, you know,
it's interesting.
The advent of digital technology.
Yes.
Now, one of the other important things that you've done in life is you're probably one of the most successful masters of ceremony.
Oh my goodness.
And I love listening to you. The way you control that room and the rapport that you have with, you know, that you establish immediately that you stand up. Yes, it's your height, but it's your presentation. What is the skill behind being a good MC?
I think just having a big mouth, it's as simple as that. Very interested in everybody that's there. You seem to know the different people in the audience, and then you know, you can mention such and such, mention, you know, them as part of the whole repartee for the night.
Yes.
And I think one of the main things is because I'm free, because most of the stuff that I do are for charity, and but I enjoy it. I actually enjoy being an MC, but I think it's time for the young ones to take over. But they keep reverting back to me, I think, because I become available if it's for charity.
Well, that's another word that people said about you. Very warm, always giving, and very generous. And in the next half, what I want to talk to you about is these fabulous programs that you run with, you know, for the empowerment of women, and the work that you do with your team, Lenora Foundation, because that is such a great skill that you have. And I wanted you to tell me the story again about how you got those biscuit tins and made them into ovens.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, Ellen, we're only continuing the work that our parents did.
Yes.
And our parents and their parents before them. We're always an extended family situation. There's always people at home. Mum and Dad were like that. You've got the Rellies coming in from the village, from Lambasa, etc. So you just naturally take that on. You went to Australia, and those of us who came back, we just take that mantle. So it's just only natural that you help the community, and if somebody, I live in a very working class area, so it's nothing for someone to come and knock on my door for asking for assistance. But I'm very honored to belong to different organizations. The IWA, for instance, you've had the wonderful Judy Compain on the program. And we just reach out to the community. We reach out to those on the ground. And the Lenora Foundation was a foundation that was started in 2003 by a lady who owned a lovely resort in Benga called Alati. And she just loved being there and what the people did for her and what, you know, their wonderful warmth. And she wanted to give back. And because there were a lot of doctors that were coming in, she asked, look, could you just bring a little, you know, a group of doctors to give them free medical attention? It's hard to get into town and that started from there. And now we've grown to having about 150 doctors come in a year. And, you know, these all had to be licensed as well. And we thank the Fiji government because this year they did away with the payment of the license just to come and operate for 7 days. So that was a tremendous saving.
Because you've taken
on our
them to
fundraising.
Union everywhere around Fiji, haven't you?
We have 2 missions. One is in the Asawas, and Navutu Stars go on holidays for 2 weeks, and we take over the resort. And all the different bures are divided up into surgical, medical, dental, women's health, also plastic surgery, you know, it's for special operations. And these doctors and medical profession from America, from Scripps in San Diego, from Mayo Clinic, from Cedars-Sinai.
Oh my gosh.
They pay for their fare to come out here. They pay for their accommodation and meals. And they give. And, you know, some of them come, and they've come from a very high-end practice, and they come to a village with swamp and everything, and you can see the attitude in their face. Ellen, in 7 days, they are crying.
Oh my goodness.
The stoicness of the Fiji people, the the gratefulness of just
Yes.
being treated for something so simple, even to something very serious, of course, is a different
Let's
matter.
go back and talk some more about that, because that Cedars-Sinai Hospital, it is one of the most expensive hospitals, a private hospital in the States. You're with Ellen Whippy-Knight and Bernadette Rounds-Ganilau talking about the Lenora Foundation, and we'll be back with more. Welcome back to On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight and Bernadette Rounds-Ganilau. We were just talking about the Lenora Foundation and its fabulous work here in Fiji. Bernadette, you mentioned the hospital, the Cedars-Sinai Hospital. That's in LA, isn't it?
Yes.
It is one of the most expensive hospitals to go to in LA, and all the celebrities go there. I know that because, you know, every now and again I see Kim Kardashian coming in and out of that hospital. To have people like that coming here to Fiji for the work that you do with the Lenora Foundation is extraordinary.
Voluntarily as well. So they just choose whatever they want to do. Our next program is in Taveuni. So we do the maritime. I'm usually in the maritime. The doctors go to the villages, Naivivi, you know, Ngeleni, etc. It's just beautiful. And then we're based at the Matangi, beautiful resort of the Douglas family.
Yes, yes.
And so, you know, a lot of people just give. So when they find out cases that that need to be treated, they all then come to the Waievo Hospital.
Right.
So that's a wonderful treatment.
But what about
assistance.
the equipment? I mean, they need things to
It's
operate.
based at the Waievo Hospital,
Right.
and that's a beautiful hospital in Fiji. And of course, we go out to do examinations, etc. And the referrals come back. You have to come back. In Navutu, it's all set up in the bures.
Right. So where did the equipment come from? Did they
From
bring?
America, it comes every year. So we receive the.
And it stays there. They don't take it back.
They
with them?
distribute it with to the health centres, or they keep it in storage at the Waievo Hospital and bring it out when it's needed. So everything is all mobile, and it's very good. So I've been very proud to be associated with them since 2003. And so while we have these two programs, one in January, February, and then April, May, we have to keep going. So I'm at the Rock Market. I'm folding up my table because I think I'm a little bit long in the tooth for that now.
Oh.
And then we hold programs. So one of them was, as you mentioned, the smokeless stove, which is...
I love that story.
Yes.
I bumped into Bernadette one day and she was rushing around as she normally is. And she told me, I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm going to go and pick up these biscuit tins. You know, those biscuit tins still around, the big, huge ones.
Yes, yes.
And I said, what do you need that for? And you said you're going to make ovens out of them.
Yes, we were making ovens out of them. They were smokeless stoves because, you know, usually we have kitchens within the household area, and the smoke and everything comes in, not good for the children. So these have a flue. They have a chimney, but it goes up and it just disperses into the atmosphere. And I know using fossil fuels isn't quite good at the moment, but it still serves its purpose.
That's right.
So we build these ovens that are coated with the tins that we cut out, and the main oven itself is a 44-gallon drum.
Right.
So we put in little slats on the side so you can actually put in scones, you can roast a pig and everything. We teach them how to bake from stuff that you can get from the village. You know, if you are going to be baking cakes, the only thing you need flour, but we use cassava. We make jam from baingani, and it turns red when you add lemon.
It's beautiful.
And if you're going to put nuts on it, we cut up beevi, you know, boil them, cut them up into little pieces. They're little nuts. So, you know, you just try to just absorb and copy what the kids see in the cake shops, etc. But these stoves are very, very, very handy. So it was designed by a man, so it was designed for you to bend down to it.
Oh, right.
So I redesigned it, and the prototype now is you build it up. So the woman just has to work on one side. There is a workbench on one side. All her firewood and baking trays are under there. And the other side, and the middle, you just put everything in. And the other side is for cleaning up and more firewood and husk. We like to use coconut husk, you know, because there's a lot of that in. So we've built that around Fiji, and I'm very pleased to say that. And we train the women, and it's something that they can do. And, you know, you can smell the smell of bread first thing in the morning. And
glorious.
the women will put it on their little handmade baskets, and then they go from village to village, or usually before they leave the village, it's already sold out. So for special occasions, that oven is so handy, etc.
Who needs a supermarket out there when you've got all of these natural products
Well, we had
available?
the resorts asking us if we could make these ovens because they would do their wood-fired pizzas in it.
Right.
But, we just have to work with the ground. Our focus is the community, women and children of the community.
How does the Lenora Foundation continue to survive? Because I can't imagine that, I see you at the rock markets, you have a beautiful shop in your home, and all for whatever you sell goes to the Lenora Foundation. But surely there must be, the airfares, when they come to stay here to Fiji, how do you pay for all of that?
The doctors pay for themselves. Everybody
Right,
who
yes, you did
lands in
say
this
that.
country pays for their food, their accommodation, and their air transport. And the various tourism operators and also the hotels have been very kind to give us very, very reasonable prices for them to live in these lovely areas like Matangi, for instance, and we thank the Douglas family for their largesse. But they pay for that themselves. What we have to pay for is like the container coming out. We fundraise in America. They fundraise mainly in America. And I've been very lucky that the Fiji Fashion Festival has donated money, and I've been approached by another organization for them to do that. The IWA was of great, great assistance to us. I was very, very proud of Judy Compain, our president, going to pick up all the food, and people are so used to just bringing their big lumps of dalo and tin of fish and everything like that, and she's got these beautiful chickens and salad and cookies and fruit juice and fruit and everything, and handing it out to everyone with my assistant Ala Nieta Disele, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's all hands on, and so we're very proud that the Fiji component has been kind to offer something, because we've not been assisted. We've been lucky that government.
So when
has
these
been
people
kind.
have been treated, when the patients have been treated, there must be some follow-up. What happens to them then? Do they wait for a year for the doctors to come back, or are the local hospital staff able to continue with the treatment?
If it's something that is quite serious, like if you're going to be having cataracts removed, they prefer not to do cataracts too at the time. So you come 1 year, this year, that totally heals, and then you come back the next year and they do that. So that's what they do. They follow up on serious cases like this. We also had families who came, and from the father, the children had arms, fingers that were webbed. So they performed the operation of separating the fingers. So that's one lot done this year, and then we're going to see how it develops the next year. But they will also be referred to their own hospitals.
And how do people know out in the rural areas of Fiji? How do they know that the doctors are going to be arriving?
Yes, there's usually a team that goes out, and the health centres know that the Lenora Foundation team will be coming. And so referrals are made to us. Can you go and check this person? We go out into the villages. We don't just wait for them to come up. It's an expensive exercise.
Absolutely.
So you have to go out to the village, check if they're all right to do it. We pay for the fare to come from where they are to come, and that was what IWA did this year.
Right.
And pay for their food to travel
And
on
if
the
anybody
boat.
listening who's watching the show and listening, if they wanted to make a donation, how can they do that?
Well, they can contact you, and then you can contact me, because at
or
least
the
it's bona
TV
fide
station.
through your television program.
Yes.
And then that just goes straight into their account, because
Right.
we are a registered charitable organisation.
Right.
This is the Fiji Lenora Foundation Charitable Trust. So we are a registered organisation. We don't raise a whole lot of money at all. It's very, very minimal, but it's just to pay for whatever needs to be done on the local scene, without having to rely on anything. When Cyclone Winston started, I was just so lucky that Christine Douglas and Robert Miller and Linda, they just said, we've got the pontoon, we've got the plane. Christine came in, she said, I've alerted all of Gamea, I've alerted all of Wuna, etc. Do you think we can do something for them? Rajendra opened up their supermarket. 2 days after that, we bought from that little money that we get at the rock market, and from what anybody has sent to me and given to me, we bought food that went on the Thursday, and Winston, we all, started to move around on Tuesday. They packed in everything, and the Douglases put it on the pontoon, and it was out of here on Thursday. And that went
such
down to
fabulous work, Bernadette.
It's just one. There's so many good people, Ellen.
Yes.
And they help you. They come on board. When they know that it's going to happen, they just come on board and help. So it's never, ever, when you have to help other people, it's never, ever a favor or an embarrassment to ask for help, because people will help you.
And people will give easily when they
Yes.
see it's somebody like you. That's the thing, you're so transparent, and people see that you're giving, and they're, you're there at the rock market when you could be enjoying your Sunday afternoon at home with your beautiful daughter Jordana, but you're down there and you work endlessly and tirelessly. So, people like us who can give a little bit, you're just the kind of person that you want to help because you do it for free. So if you're listening in and you need to feel like you want to give something to the community, like what Bernadette does, please contact MaiTV or even ring me and then speak to Stanley Simpson, and they will direct you to where you can give a little bit of your heart and out of your pocket to the Lenora Foundation. You've been watching us On Point, and we'll be back with you for more in just a little while. Welcome back to On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight and Bernadette Rounds-Ganilau. There is so much to talk about, Bernadette, because you've been there, you've done that. The role of women in Fiji in business is something that's very rarely talked about, the glass ceiling. And, I wrote 3 names down here. There's Marie Curie from 1800s, who started, invented radioactivity, which was very good for curing cancer now, of course. Rosa Parks, the African-American lady who challenged, the racial segregation in the States in the 1950s. And Margaret Thatcher is one of my best mentors. I just loved her. The first British female Prime Minister. And the reason I put those names down was because I look at you as being in that same category.
Holy moly, and they're all dead. Thank you very much.
You're a living legend.
No.
And you've seen how the role of women has changed in society in Fiji from the days you came back. Our mothers were brilliant examples, that provided a very good story and case for us to follow. And I remember your mother, Auntie Bonita, so warmly.
What a character.
What a lady, really, honestly. And of course, your father, Uncle Fred, and all your brothers, and you came from a very, very good family. And this is what happens when you come from a good family, good upbringing. It produced lovely people like you. And the women in Fiji have struggled to break through that glass ceiling, particularly in business. But we've also had some fabulous women, who have led the cause for us here. There's a number of them that you mentioned, including Tess Apted. There's you, of course, and you talked about Amalia, and I remember her so well.
She was.
What's your take on all of that?
We've all evolved, and it's just the way of the world. And whilst I was young, I thought all these women were dynamic at the time. Teresa Apted had just broken that ceiling insofar as the corporate sector was around, and there was no such thing as that person in business. And there she was with all these men. There was Cherie Whiteside, just being so dynamic in fashion. Then the women who were being educated, oh my goodness, we almost bowed when they walked past.
And Mrs. Arcoy, Carolyn's mother.
Of course, yes, and we were coming to that when it becomes government, the first secretary, but she'd always been involved in politics, not as in the party, but in the public service. These were all people who developed and paved the way for the new Fiji as we came along. And then it was so interesting to note that whilst we say, oh, there's not much recognition given to women, it didn't make any difference to the women. They kept on growing and kept on developing. When you look at women in business, for instance, you being a very successful businesswoman with your businesses in Sydney and then, of course, your business here. But when you look at them, no media attention, no attention to them, no spotlight stopped them from developing. They just kept on going because there was a need. They had to put food on the table. They had to clothe their children. They had to provide secure and safe home for their families and be partners to their husbands. So they just went on because there was a need, not because they needed attention. And I just take my hat off to the wives of the shopkeepers, you know, the Gujarati shopkeepers, the old Chinese shopkeepers. You know, Jenny used to tell me, Jenny Sito, that when they owned a very successful business in Turak, their parents, they were brought up in boxes. They were all in, you know, when they were born, and they had to be there because they had to be looked after. That's how they learned commerce, you know, and that's how the Indian families taught their children commerce, by example. A lot of the Kailomas, that's what they did by working in the sugarcane mills, etc., and in the PWD. It was just a graduation of watching hard work being done. So I just take my hat off to the graduation of women who did this, especially women on the ground. We always forget about the artisans, you know, the ladies who weave baskets, provide for the tourists, who provide food on the roadside, you know, crabs, and go diving for shellfish. They all are part of the socio-economic development of this country. Not always recognized, but I'm glad to say in the last so many years it has been, because our own women consultants and NGOs are specifying and demanding that they be included in any developmental program.
Yes.
And we've got a wonderful NGO community now, becoming very corporate, but that's fine.
Yes.
But you're now seeing where at one stage, if I can recall, the NCS-MED, the National Centre for Small and Medium Enterprise Development, they started doing data, and it was nice to have data to see. And I think going back a few years ago, of the informal sector, which is about 81% of businesses in Fiji, all the rest are top. You know, they're all registered.
That is very high, 81%.
These are all the house girls, the market gardeners, the market vendors, the small businesses, the cottage industry, you know. You just have to go to the rock market and you see the amazing cottage industry that's on fire there. And of that percentage, I think that 71 or even 70% or 71% were women.
Wow.
Selling along the roadside, making sasa broom and everything like that. So, you know, we continued regardless of whether we were recognized or not. But now we see this wonderful flourish of amazing women, business women in every field. Yes,
because you started, you also started an NGO in 1972?
Actually, no, that was when I was in radio.
Right, oh, sorry, that was when you were radio.
Yes, when I was radio, in 2002.
2002, yes, because I remember that. It was the Women's Entrepreneur,
Fiji,
this
Fiji.
Is this We Fiji.
Yeah, I think it's a take.
And you're still running that?
That's just such a very low-key, ongoing organization.
And what was the purpose of that, the objective?
It was just to teach women what to do, because they'd say, Mrs. Ganilau, you've got lovely earrings. Mrs. Ganilau, you like that. I said, you can make them because I make them.
By the way, I just want to say, I noticed you're wearing a really gorgeous Hapfel herder dress. And that is so stunning on you. And when you said that, because it reminded me as well that you also teach women how to make jewelry, sewing little
from
things
paper, from cardboard, from rubbish and stuff like that.
Yes,
and
recycling.
Recycling and upcycling as well.
Upcycling, yes.
So that's been going on for years now.
Yes.
I'm slowing down now because everybody is quite adept at doing it, and so they go out and do the same thing. Pat Fraser in the Busy Bees in Lautoka, let me take my hat off to you, Pat, and all your wonderful women for doing this and going out to the islands and the interior. Sister Anna, who came from Indonesia and taught us how to turn rubbish into purses.
Yes, she came back to Australia actually.
And they're still working
those
now at that.
Fabulous bags that they make.
Beautiful. So it's just that we learn from each other. And the only reason I started making jewelry because my jeweler, every time I would pay him, would go and get drunk, and that was the end of that. So I'd have an order on hand. So I had to dismantle everything to put it all back together to learn. So that's sharing with everyone. So that's what we did when we went out to the villages, etc. And it's just bringing money in. That's all it is. Something frivolous as jewelry, so what? Women like
I
to
know,
live.
but it's what you do for them that is just so thankful for on their behalf. And I hear you say every now and again that you're going to close up shop, you're going to take a break, but you keep going at it. Now, if, for instance, you did close up shop, what is Bernadette Rounds-Ganilau going to do?
Well, I'm certainly not
Other
going to
than
sit
deserve
down
a good
there.
break.
Oh, I'm certainly not going to sit down and knit ponchos, as my
No.
my daughter keeps saying. Instead of me saying to the daughter, "Where are you going to, dear?" It's, "Ma, where are you going to now?" Or, "What time will you be back?"
Yes, because you're on a big trip very soon as
yes,
well.
we'll be off on a beautiful trip for her 21st. But you just never stop. Ellen, there are always things to do. I'm part
Yes.
of my cathedral's widows ministry. We have a wonderful time. And I keep saying to the widows, our husbands are dead, but we're still alive. We've got to keep going. So we go on pilgrimages and we do things, and we're assisted by the community. IWA, which I love.
Yes.
And the Lenora Foundation keeps going, and I'm also part of the Fiji China Friendship Association. So I've given away all my other things. WebC, which is an amazing Women Entrepreneurs Business Council, so dynamic. Eseta Nantakuitavuki is our president from the beginning, and she is just amazing. America Garawal keeps going, and we've got Bernie Nichols and all these amazing, Atela Yee, all these young people who are just taking over. I'm just so proud of them.
But it's you that's setting that example for them.
No, we all are doing that. But you know what I like about these women, love about them? They don't demand attention. They just do it because they have to do it, and they know that they can do it, and they want to do it. So they just move on, whether anybody's looking at them or anything. There's a purpose. They are mothers, businesswomen, and they succeed.
Bernadette, thank you so much for being on the show with us. It's always lovely to be around you. You're somebody I could just follow around for the rest of my life and just watch you. You've been watching On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight and Bernadette Rounds-Ganilau. Thank you very much for watching us tonight, and we'll see you here, same time, same place, next week, Monday at 8 p.m.